Hi guys, I am Muchekwa Ntangeni with Maths XYZ, and today in this lesson we'll be continuing from the lesson that we did from yesterday on geometry. Remember yesterday we talked about the straight line, the supplementary angles, the corresponding angles, alternative angles, co-interior angles, and exterior angles in geometry. So remember, with supplementary angles are those angles that when you add them up, they must give you a sum of 180 degrees. And any angles are around a point, when you add them up, they should also give you a revolution, which is 360 degrees. And also note that with geometry, when you have an angle, if you have a triangle which is right angle triangle, that means that you have a 90 degree, one of the angles within that triangle should be a 90 degree, and you are allowed also to use the theorem of Pythagoras in it. And also remember that we have three types of triangles in geometry, which is the equilateral triangle, where all sides in the triangles and all angles inside the triangle, they are equal. And we also have the scalene triangle, and we also have the isosceles triangle in geometry. And also remember about the corresponding angles and also the alternative angles in geometry, and the interior angles in geometry, and also the exterior angles in geometry. And please note that when you see two arrows like this ones in here, that means that those two lines, they're parallel to each other. All right, then that was just a quick checkup from what we have discussed from our previous lesson. All right, here we have a question that says, given that AB, which is this line AB, okay, I forgot to write B here. This is line AB. It's parallel to CD. Remember these two lines here, they mean it's a symbol of parallel lines. So AB is parallel to CD. GH, which is GH there, is a straight line, and E1, which is here, is equals to 120 degrees. So the question says, calculate the size of all the remaining angles in this parallelogram here. So with this one, given that AB is parallel to CD and E1 there is 120 degrees, we are now asked to calculate this, in E1, 2, and no, E1 we already have it, E2, E3, and E4, and we are also required to calculate all the angles around the point of F there. So now from what we have here, what we need to do is to apply the geometry that we have we have already discussed from our previous lesson, which is yesterday. So starting from here, we just write E1, that E1 is equals to 120 degrees there. Then to find the value of E2, which is right there, we know that AB is a straight line. So to get the value of E2 there, what we need to do is to calculate. Remember that in a straight line, where to calculate the sum of the second angle here is supplementary angle. When we add E1 and E2, they must give us a sum of 180 because they are supplementary angle adjacent to each other. So what we need to do is to say 180 degrees minus 120 degrees, of which this will give us 60 degrees. So the reason for this is that adjacent angle, straight line. Adjacent angles, straight line, right? That is the reason why we have to subtract 120 from 180 degrees. All right. Then to calculate the sum of E2, to get the value of E3, remember about vertical opposite angle in geometry, that they are equal. So the sum of E3 is equals to 120 degrees, and the reason why it's 120 degrees is vertical opposite angles. Vertical opposite angles. But that is not the only angles, right? That's not the only way to find the value of E3 there. What we can also do is to say that G and H is a straight line, as they have mentioned here, that is a straight line. So now that we know the value of E2 there, which is 60 degrees, to get the value of E3 there, we just have to subtract 60 degrees from 180, which will give us 120 degrees, because there is a straight line, and these two E2 and E3, they are adjacent angles in the straight line. So that's why we will use that to get the value of E3. But then to just make it easy, we know that vertical opposite angles in geometry, they are also equal, so we don't need to calculate anything. The very same thing with E4, as you can see there. E4 there, we can actually say that E3 and E4, they're in a straight line, and they're vertical, they are adjacent to each other. So we can subtract 120 from 180 to get the value of E4, which will be 60 degrees. And then another way of doing it, we can actually say that E1 and E4, they are also in the straight line. They are adjacent to each other. So what we need to do also is to subtract the value of 120 from 180, since they are supplementary angles, to give a 60 degrees. But another way of doing it without even taking a calculator is to say that vertical opposite angles, they are equal to each other, because E2 and E4, they are vertical opposite to each other. That means that they are equal. We don't even have to use a calculator to get the sum of that. So we know that E4 is equal to 60 degrees, and reason for that, it's vertical opposite angle of E2. So even here we should also write at with which angle is it vertical opposite, like 120 vertical opposite angle of E1 right here, of E1. All right, then moving on to the point of F, which is this one here. To get the value of 1, 2, and 3, and 4, we have to use these values of the value of point E to get the values of point F. And another thing that you can also do to check if your answers, if the angles that you calculated and get, they are correct, what you need to do is to add all these angles right here. And when you add them, they must give you, remember, all the angles around a point, they should add up to a revolution, which is 360. So adding 120 and 120, that should give you a 240. And 240, you must add 60, which will give you 300, and adding another 60 will give you 360. So that's just a confirmation that the angles that we have calculated, they are actually correct, because they add up to 360 degrees. All right, and then moving on to the second point, which is point F then, which at point F we're not given even a single angle. So what we need to do, we need to use the point E to get the values of angles in point F. All right, so what we have here, what we are told in the question is that AB, it's parallel to CD, and GH is a straight line. Now that those two lines are parallel, what do we know about parallel lines? When we have parallel lines, we also know about alternative angles. So with alternative angles is those angles that when you they must form a shape of a Z. So the angles that form a shape of a Z in this case is this line here. It's this line. I'll just use a different marker so that you guys can see. All right. So the lines that point that forms a Z, in this case we have E4 and E2, they form a point of Z, and also we also have E3 and E1 that forms a shape of Z. So we have this as well. This forms Z. So this angle here is equal to that angle there. So what we need to do now that we know that E4 is equal to E2, and the reason for that, why they are equal, is because they are alternative angles. So that means that E4, since we know that it's 60 degrees, and why we got 60 degrees, that is because it's vertical opposite to angle of E2. So now that we know that they are equal, it's 60 degrees in here, and reason is because it's an alternative angle of E4. That is the value of F2. And then moving on, now that we have 60 degrees for F2, what we need to do to get the values of other points is, when we go to, remember that vertical opposite angles are equal. That means that even F4 in this case is also equal to 60 degrees. And reason for that is because they are vertical opposite to each other. Now that we know that, that means this is equal to 60 degrees, and reason it's vertical opposite angle of F2. We have the value of that. And another way of doing it, after we have calculated the value of E3 right there, F3 I mean to say, we can actually just subtract the value of F3 from 180, and we would have got the value of F4 right there. The same thing that we did here, that there are many ways of finding the values of angles. You can use alternative angles, you can use the sum of adjacent angles that are equal to 180 degrees, and also you can also still, if you are only left with one angle that you don't know, and you know that angles around a point, they must give you a value of 360, so you can just subtract the other three angles from 360 to get the value of that angle. So there are many ways of doing this. So moving on, now that we know that F4 here is equal to 60 degrees, to find the value of F1 and F3, what we can do is to say that F4 and F1, they are in a straight line. The same way with F1 and F2, they are also in a straight line. So we just subtract the angle from, either we subtract F4 or we subtract F f2 from 180, and that will give us a value of f1 then. So to subtract 180 minus 60 degrees, it will give us 120 degrees. So here we know that this is 120 degrees. Now that we have 120 degrees for f1, to get the value of f3, there are many ways we can do it. We can actually say that f3, I mean to say, is vertical opposite to the value of it's vertical opposite to f1, which is 120 degrees, and we know that the vertical opposite angles, they are equal to each other. Or the other way that we can do is to say that f3 and f4, they are in a straight line. Adjacent angles, they are supplementary, and they give a sum of 180 degrees. Or we can say that f3 and f2, they are actually in a straight line, and they're supplemental angles. They must give us a value of 180 degrees. Another way of doing it is to say that angles around a point, they should give us a value of, they should add up to 360 degrees. And now that we have the values of other three angles, that means we just subtract the three angles from 360, and they will give us the value of f4, f3. So there are many ways of doing it, but then the easiest way, we don't even need a calculator, is to say that vertical opposite angles, they are equal. That means that f3 is also equals to 120 degrees. So this one is equals to 120 degrees. Now we have answered the question fully, that we have now calculated all the size of all the remaining angles in this diagram here. I hope you guys understood everything, and you can now understand more about the shape that we did from our previous lesson, and all the rules that we have discussed in triangles, and also all the rules in geometry that we have done from our previous lesson. Alright guys, and also please don't forget to subscribe to Maths XYZ on YouTube, so that you can continue to get the notification when we upload videos. Thank you.